I messed it up already. Welcome to episode 574 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Gunther. And this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games. And we are right in the middle of an entertainment news desert.
Yeah, also known as the holidays, but more specifically known as the week before CES.
Right.
That's the real reason for it. But we've got a little bit of news to cover, and we thought we'd do something a little bit fun. I kind of threw this at Richard at the last minute and said, hey, wouldn't it be fun to talk about some of our favorite media from 2021? So we're going to go through some of our favorite picks, and we did not tell each other what they were ahead of time. So it'll be as fun for us as it will be for you. So that'll be after the news and after the feedback. Oh wait, we're already done with the feedback because I don't think there is any unless I just missed it. But I don't think I did. If I did miss your feedback, I apologize. Richard and I are getting slammed with CES email. So it is easier to miss these things amongst the flood of other messages coming in. So I apologize if we did. I'll try and find them as I'm looking through things later. But let's just jump into the news. First story, it's not a surprising one. It's yet another price increase from an online streaming service provider. This time around, one that we don't frequently talk about. And I think that's primarily because it's maybe the most expensive. If not, it's definitely one of, but I think it is the most expensive of these types of services compared to YouTube TV, Hulu, and Sling, and all those guys. It is DirecTV Stream. They announced that they are going to be increasing the price of their plans by a couple of different amounts depending on the plan that you have, all starting January 23rd. And it seems like this price hike is mostly related to regional sports networks wanting to ask for more money from the service. And the reason we guess that is because there is one tier of DirecTV Stream that doesn't have any of those channels. It's called the entertainment tier. It is $69.99. That tier's price is not increasing. It is staying steady at $69.99 a month. All the rest of them go up. The choice plan, which only gives you your local regional sports network, goes up $5 to $90 a month. And then the ultimate and premier plans, gosh, I didn't even realize they had plans that cost this much. They're going up by $10 each to $105 and $150 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. Yikes.
Wow.
I didn't do the research to see what all is included in there. Like, I wonder if maybe it includes HBO or something. Like, that is just so much money. It's got to include some premium stuff for that kind of money, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, wow, that is a lot. I mean, if it doesn't include an actual premium service of some sort, that's wow, that's unheard of. Maybe that's access to premium sports services of some sort.
Yeah, if it's like every sports channel in the universe or something.
Well, yeah. Except for what? NFL Ticket? Wasn't DirecTV the service that had the whole NFL Ticket thing that you could pay a fortune for?
Yeah, that was like $300 a season or something like that.
So I don't know. I mean, who knows? I don't know the cause of this. I don't know what's in those packages.
I looked it up.
All I know. Okay. All right. Well, I'm dying. Tell me.
You do get HBO Max, Cinemax, Showtime, and Starz.
All right. So you're getting the majors. You're getting. All right. All right. This is starting to a whole lot look like cable. I mean,
Right.
just saying.
It looks exactly like cable. Right. And if any of you are still hanging on to legacy AT&T TV Now plans, like you didn't switch over to a DirecTV stream service when the service is kind of combined under the one umbrella, then regardless of which plan you're on, your plan will also be going up by $10 a month. So there you go. That's depressing. Let's move on to other news, although this isn't super exciting. So we talked a few episodes back about the Google Home app now working as a software-based remote control for your Google TV or Android TV devices. And the one thing that we thought was a little bit weird about it is that instead of having a D-pad, it was swipey controls. You would swipe like you were using a trackpad on a laptop or something. It was kind of weird. Biggest news maybe of 2021, they've implemented a D-pad in the application. Okay, maybe not the biggest news of 2021, but it's there now. Although it's still not obvious if you load up I was going to say the app, but it's not a separate app. It's the Google Home app. If you go into the remote control settings for one of your Android or Google TV devices, click the remote button, it's still going to give you the swipey controls. So you have to go up to the top right, click the kebab menu. At least that's how it works in Android. I didn't try this on my iPad to see how it works in iOS, but there's some button there that you go in, enable the D-pad controls. And I did try this out, and it looks like, at least for me, I closed out the Google Home app, went back in, and it did default to the D-pad controls for me. So hopefully it does look like it remembers the setting you chose, because I don't ever want to use the swipey things. Just give me the D-pad like normal.
It's interesting because I think that coming from the Apple TV world, the idea of the swiping gestures makes sense to me. Not that I love the Apple TV remote. I'm in this remote sucks camp, but I've become so used to that it does seem natural on like remotely to a TV screen. So I'm sure it is going to be interesting to find out if they ever share telemetry, how people are using it.
Yeah, and frankly, I think that the swipey controls actually make a lot of sense when you don't have tactile feedback. This is just more me like grouchy old man yelling at clouds. Like, I just want the old way of doing it, the way that I'm used to. Like, I'm used to using a D-pad. I want to use a D-pad. Even though if I'm trying to use this as a D-pad on my phone and looking at the TV, there's a decent chance I'm going to miss those buttons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's nothing tactile. And that's why the swipey actually does make more sense, but I still don't want to do it. It's just an old stubborn thing in me, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. All right, last real news, and I think this is cool and kind of interesting. And I guess to give a little bit of a spoiler into some of our CES talk, I wish I could get my ears on this thing. But while we're covering CES, we're doing it from afar this year. So I'm not going to be able to hear this in Las Vegas next week. Polk Audio launched in December. It seems kind of weird, but in December launched a new soundbar. It's called the Signa S4, and it's Polk's first Atmos soundbar, which kind of surprised me. Like, I thought everybody had an Atmos soundbar at this point in time, but Polk apparently didn't, and now they do. And it's got 7 drivers in it. 2 of those are up firing. That's how you get the Atmos height sound. It works like pretty much every Atmos enabled soundbar in that it's trying to just bounce sound off of your ceiling. And then, the other 5 drivers are basically pointed out at you. The other really important thing is it does also include a wireless subwoofer. So you are going to get some bass too out of something bigger than just a soundbar. But the other cool feature that they've got, and this isn't super unique, but it's a nice thing to have, especially if you're just watching casual television, is they've got technology that they're calling voice adjust, which is kind of a dumb name, but really all it does is it makes it so that if there's people talking and the scene has lots of things going on, it will make it easier to understand the people who are talking. This is basically why in your typical 5.1 stereo set or 5.1 surround sound setup, that's why you have a center channel speaker. Most
Right.
of the dialogue from movies and shows comes out of the center channel speaker, and
Right.
all of that other stuff typically comes out of the left and right. Now that isn't to say that no dialogue comes out of the left and rights, but they tend to focus the dialogue out of that center channel speaker. One, because it makes it look like the sound is coming from the people who are saying it, because that's the speaker right underneath of your TV. But also because it's the one pointed closest to you. Like it just makes tons of sense for lots and lots of reasons. But in these sound bars where they've got all of the speakers in a fairly closer, smaller enclosure, they've got to come up with some other ways of pulling that off. So they're doing it with software that can also be specifically enabled if you push the button for night mode. The having a night mode is a common thing in most sound bars and AV receivers and all of that, where typically it'll just like reduce the bass a lot so that you're not shaking the walls of your house while people are trying to sleep. Well, in this mode, it also works on amplifying the dialogue for you in addition to decreasing the bass. So all of this sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And it's $400, which that price sounds really good to me.
Yeah. Well, but it's Polk, right? I mean, it's not like we're talking about something from Bowers and Wilkins or anything
Right.
like that, right? This is a budget audio brand that puts out good products.
Right.
So
like I kind of cringed a little bit when you called them budget because I think they're better than budget, but
yeah, but I mean the price points, right? Or the price points that they hit, I think makes, maybe the better word is affordable.
Yeah.
It's an affordable brand, but they're not known for fantastic audio, but they make good products. So I think this is something that is interesting to me. I'm actually going to be in the market for a sound bar. I'm going to be moving in about a month's time, and this new family room is not wired for sound. And it would be really difficult for me to do that. So I'm going to need, if I want to continue to have Atmos or even any sort of surround, I'm going to need to have some sort of sound bar. And of course, it's a family room, so it's open. So it's not a really optimal space for bouncing sound around. So who knows how this is going to work, but I need to try some products. We might need to review some products. That's it.
We might need to.
We might try a couple different ones, see which ones we like the best. But in all seriousness, I mean, I think this could be appealing to a lot of people. The voice thing is a bigger deal than I think most people realize. If you have a surround system and you're hooked up to an amplifier and everything, even in that case, it's easy for that dialogue to just get drowned out by noises going on or music. Soundtrack is specifically problematic. And I find that many audio folks advise that you bump the center channel up so that you can hear the audio better, because the way they mix these things nowadays, it's just not good. So,
well, that might be a controversial statement, but
I'm sticking by it. It's just not good. But anyway, I think that that kind of feature is going to go a long way to help with problems like that. So I love seeing stuff like that. This is cool. I want to find out more about this.
All right, cool. Well, that does it for our news. Like we're barely 15 minutes into the show, and that basically does it for our news. So we're gonna jump into our media favorites of 2021, and there are a lot of categories of things that we talk about, and I don't know how Richard tried to figure out his on such a short timetable, but this is basically our favorites of the stuff that we would basically talk about and what's going on in our entertainment centers, which is exactly how I found most of mine. I opened the show notes for every single episode from this year and looked at what I had put in there because I'm terrible at remembering these things.
Yep.
So let's do movie last because I'm sure we're both going to have a movie. At least
Okay.
I'm thinking. So, but we're probably not necessarily going to have something for every category. So why don't we start with,
The one I'm least likely to have an answer for.
okay, so you want to do game. Okay, that works. That totally works. So mine is not going to be surprising. One of the things that I didn't tell Richard when I said we should do our favorites of 2021. I like to have rules on this sort of thing. I wanted to specifically pick things that came out in 2021.
Oh, geez.
Did I screw this up for you? Hopefully
Nope.
that didn't screw up too much. So since I'm limiting it to things that came out in 2021, for my game, I'm picking Forza Horizon 5, which I don't think is going to surprise anybody. It was the game of the year from lots of places. It's a really great game. If I was able to pick a game that came out last year, it would have been It Takes Two. I had so much fun with that game. But since I'm putting it on games that came out this year, there hasn't been a game that came out this year that I enjoyed more than Forza Horizon 5, even though I've played NHL for more hours. So that's my game of the year. Richard, which category do you want to jump to next?
How about if we jump to book?
Okay.
I have a funny feeling we may be choosing the same book.
I absolutely think we're going to pick the same book.
And part of that similarity is because I don't typically get time to go through books, to read a book or listen to a book. And I absolutely 100% loved and recommend to everybody who's a sci-fi fan Project Hail Mary.
Absolutely.
It was phenomenal.
So good. So good. From Andy Weir, the guy who wrote The Martian and
Artemis,
Artemis. That's
which
the one.
supposedly is not as good. I have not read it.
I've not read it either. I keep forgetting that it exists. It's one that I should go and check out. Yeah, it was so good. For my we're not really picking runner-ups, but I did just finish another book that also came out this year, called "This Is How the World Ends." It is a nonfiction book by, I should look it up while I'm talking because it's important to have authors' names. A woman who writes for the New York Times, and it's about cybersecurity and the real bad situation that we're in terms of cybersecurity stuff. This is by Nicole Perlroth, Perlroth. Very interesting book. Lots of history of cybersecurity and even just some history of the internet. Internet history stuff that I didn't even know. It's a really interesting book. It's maybe a little longer than it needs to be, but really interesting. Like if you were fascinated by Stuxnet at all, you're gonna like the interesting information that comes out of this book. But it's still not better than Project Hail Mary. That book was just so good, so
It was
good.
amazing. It was amazing. If we get runner-ups, my runner-up would be I read a couple political books this past year. And of those, my favorite has been I Alone Can Fix It, the kind of telling of the year 2020 by two New York Times writers, Carol Leonnig and Phil Rucker. And while a lot of it was recounting stuff that we've heard on the news for the last 2 years, I found it really interesting in the way they just dove into the details, and the information that they got from people was really kind of shocking. So
Yeah.
I thought that was really good.
That is one I should put on my list to read. Okay. Do you have a podcast of the year?
Ooh. I need to think a little bit about that one. So let's not do that yet. And you don't have that listed, do you? Oh, you do have it listed here. You didn't give that to me in the initial list.
Sorry.
So
we're very disorganized here at the end of
that's okay. That is okay. How about if we do TV shows or shows instead?
Sure. So I'll go first this time. I don't know if this is cheating. There was a new season this year of it. This isn't going to surprise anybody.
Fair enough.
It's Ted Lasso, and I think it counts because of the new season this year. I know I'm I'm a year late to the game on this one, but it was so good. My wife and I absolutely loved the show. In fact, for Christmas, one of the things that Jen got me is a hoodie that's like a light blue hoodie that says "Believe" in big yellow letters.
Nice.
Yeah, that show. Like, I mean, we can't say enough good things about Ted Lasso.
Nice. No, we really can't. I have ordered a couple things. I have the jersey, and I think, ordered the either the sweatshirt or the vest that the coaches wear. And they're not available yet. They haven't been actually sent yet, which is really frustrating to me. But yeah, I absolutely love that. That was my runner-up this year, though, believe it or not. So my number one show for the year was Mayor of Easttown from Hulu. And I talked about this on the show. It's a 6 or 7 part, I think it's called, I forget what they call them now, but we used to call them miniseries. And it's an emotional, devastating story. And it is so good. It is just such good storytelling, such good acting. It is not for the faint of heart or for the family to watch, but it is really, really good. And it deserved all of the Emmys that it won. It was phenomenal.
This is one that I should go and watch. Like, if I can find the time, especially you said it's like 7 episodes. I could make time for that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really wonderful.
Okay. Did you come up with a podcast?
If you go first, I probably can.
Okay. I'll go first. So I don't change podcast all that often. But I did start listening to one this year. This is in the religious category, I guess. It was called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. And Mars Hill was a pretty big church that started out in the Seattle area in the early 2000s, I think, with a pastor named Mark Driscoll. And it was a church that got real big, real huge, like real big in lots of ways. You know, they were one of the first churches to be putting sermons online and MP3s and stuff like that. And then it was 2013 or 2014, it all came crashing down. And it's a very, very interesting story. Which, like, my wife was following a lot of this stuff happening in real time. So this is more of a recounting of it for her. A lot of this was new to me. It's a really, really fascinating story. That's a look. It's not just a look at like church stuff. It's also like power dynamics and stuff like that. It was really, really fascinating. Put out from, Well, I can't remember who put that out. Christianity Today, I think, a popular magazine, is the one that put that out, and they just did a really, really excellent job. This is not one of those things that dragged on longer than it needed to. They didn't try to turn this into a 2.5-year project to milk it for all it was worth. It was a few months and then done, and it's done now. So they just did a really great job producing it. It was really good. So that's mine.
All right, that's good. So I have two that I think fit the rules. I'm going to make one fit the rules. One of them is an actual podcast series that premiered this year from Marketplace. It's called How We Survive, and it was hosted by Molly Wood. I say was hosted by Molly Wood, believing that it is going to continue on to a second season, but Molly Wood is no longer with Marketplace.
Right.
Molly Wood left the organization to get involved personally in the stuff she learned and talked about in this show she did. And the show is about how we as a planet adapt to the changing climate. What things can we do economically, socially, financially, science-wise? What things can we do to survive the changing climate? And it's fascinating. The things that she dove into, I never really would have even thought about. And most of this season focused on the technology behind battery power. And that's just one season. Imagine that's just one aspect of, how lives are changing potentially in reaction to climate change. So I really look forward to what they're going to do going forward. And I'm curious who's going to pick it up too.
Yeah. That was one that I meant to subscribe to and never did. And maybe I just kind of subconsciously didn't because of her leaving the Marketplace.
Yeah, but it is fantastic. It really is good. It is done as a storytelling, as journalistic storytelling. So the back and forth between interviews and her commentary and the immersive audio of where she is and things. It's wonderful. They did a fantastic job with it. My second one is an episode. I had a favorite episode of a podcast. And there are several reasons this is my favorite episode. This premiered on New Year's Eve last year. So I'm making this count.
It was within hours of this year.
That's right. It was an unanticipated new episode of Tell It Anyway. Jenny Josephson with her husband telling a story about something that happened in their lives. And first of all, I adore her husband. Her husband is so funny and so smart. He's a writer in Hollywood, and he is such a good storyteller. And the two of them are kind of bantering back and forth, telling this thing that happened in their lives. And everyone that listens to this is going to be able to relate to it, because everyone's going to know what they're talking about when they get to like the big moment, the point of the story. I highly recommend going back and looking for the episode that dropped on New Year's Eve. They might actually have published it to the stream in this new year. So there you go. It counts. There you go. Episode of Tell It Anyway. It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Okay. Well, let's do album/music next. And I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah. So one I can't count because you changed the rules. So, because
I didn't
one of,
change the rules. I just
well,
didn't tell
you
you all
didn't
the
tell me what the
rules.
rules were, right? And then suddenly, oh, yeah, you can't do that. All right. So, um, one of my, I think my favorite album that was new this year was Emmett Fenn's Far From Here. Emmett Fenn is an electronic artist. He is very, very mellow and subdued and soulful. I've loved his music in the past. I have worn out, if it's possible to do that with digital tracks, certain cuts that he's come out with. And this new album that he dropped this year, I think is just absolutely fantastic. Love it. Highly recommend it. When I like an album, I pay the money to buy the tracks. And I have done that with this one. I absolutely love it. I went back to see what I had listened to most on Apple Music this year, and a good half of the tracks on this album were among my most listened tracks of the year.
Wow.
So
I'm gonna have to look this one up. I've not heard of this artist before.
yeah. Now
So
I have runners up that didn't make the cut of your rules, but I'm going to mention them anyway. Hans Zimmer's soundtrack for Wonder Woman 84. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal soundtrack. The movie has so many problems, but the soundtrack is so good. And my second runner up also came out last year, but it's a Christmas album, and it's the album A Drummer Boy Christmas from For King and Country. They're a they live in America, but they were born in Australia, and they're a Christian rock band, I guess you could call them, duo. This album is like in your face Christmas music. It goes from being just so soft and wonderful to being really loud and brash, almost like Mannheim Steamroller kind of loud and brash, but it's wonderful. It is powerful. It's amazing. I highly recommend this if you haven't listened to it. And if there's any hours left in the time you're going to allot yourself to listen to Christmas music before the end of the year, give this one a listen.
Cool. I had a hard time with this one because most of my favorite bands didn't release albums this year. So
yeah.
The closest I've got is an EP. And I think that counts. It's not a full album.
Totally.
But it's even though Spotify for some dumb reason calls it a single, even though it's 5 different songs. I'm not sure why weird. Spotify calls that a single. That's an EP in my book. And it's an EP called Neon Stars by the band Wild Rivers. Wild Rivers is the band that I listen to like crazy. My Spotify, I can't remember the name of the thing they do to give you your year in review. It might just be called year in review from Spotify. It's all them. It's like all Wild Rivers this year. I was in the top 0.5% of listeners to this band this year.
Nice.
Which is insane. Jen and I went and saw them in concert this year. We're thinking of going and seeing them again in January. Like, I just love this band. But this is more of an EP because they've got a new album coming out in February. So I imagine it's going to have a lot of these songs and some other ones. Yeah, I just love Wild Rivers. So I'm going to go with Wild Rivers, Neon Stars.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
I think we made it to movie.
So I don't know. Do you feel super strongly about any? Because I kind of struggled with this one.
Right? So there are two things that are kind of fighting against us on this. One, didn't see a lot of movies this year. 2, didn't go to any movies this year. And 3, nothing that I did see knocked my socks off.
Yeah, I saw some movies in theater. I went and saw a movie today in theaters. There was me, my daughter, and 2 other people. But yeah, there was nothing that really knocked my socks off.
All right. Well, I do have a winner, and it's very recent. It is No Time to Die.
Oh,
I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I know it's been a little bit controversial. Some people did not like it that much. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I thought they did a really good job of wrapping up his tenure as James Bond. He's been a fantastic James Bond. They do a good job of incorporating other characters that you've known and who knows may get to and continue to know. It was Bond in all the right ways, I think. And while you do have to ask yourself how many times is Bond going to go rogue and then they're going to try and get him to come work with them again, because that seems to have been the plot of every movie he's been in, but it works and I recommend it.
nice. I've not seen that one. I think I've missed the last couple of Bond movies, which I'm sure like royally offends you. I like Bond. I don't know why I haven't seen the last few. I should go back and see them. I've heard good things about this one. If I had seen it, maybe it would have been my number one pick. So I made a list of the movies that I could think of that I saw this year that came out this year. And there's only four: Fast and the Furious 9, Shang-Chi, The Eternals, and the one I saw today, Matrix Resurrections. And that was after watching the third Matrix movie this morning, the second Matrix movie yesterday, and the first one like just before Christmas because my 13-year-old had never seen any of them and she wanted to, and I was like, "Okay, I think you might kind of struggle to understand these, especially movies 2 and 3, but we'll try it."
I struggled to understand them.
Right. Like I was looking forward to rewatching them just in hopes that I would understand more, especially when the architect is talking. Like, what is he like? I think I finally get it now that I'm 40. I think I finally understand the Matrix 20 years later. And Matrix Resurrections is probably my pick of that group. It's good. It's not the greatest movie ever. It's not better than the first Matrix. It's probably, I don't even want to say that. Like, I was going to say it's probably better than the second and third Matrix movie, which to most people is going to be like, oh, just probably those movies were terrible. I don't think they were terrible. I think
Right.
they were pretty good movies. They just weren't as good as the first one, which would have been pretty much impossible. So, it's different. Um, it's a lot more action, at least a lot more action than what you got in the first Matrix movie. A lot more fights, which is in some ways good. Like they continue to do awesome fight scenes. The story mostly makes sense. There's what there's one part that I would like to rewatch to understand what is the purpose of this plan and why do we need to do it this way and what's this yeah, it's a little weird. It's good. It's not fantastic. It's not a movie that I'm going to watch a whole bunch of times in the next year because it was, mind-blowing or anything like that. um I had hoped it would be, but it's not quite there. But that still makes it a lot better than Fast and the Furious 9, way more enjoyable for me than Eternals, and
Mm-hmm.
slightly better than Shang-Chi, I guess, because it's a story that I'm more interested in. But
Yeah.
they both have really great kung fu.
All right. There you go.
So yeah, I guess I'll go
Wow.
with the new Matrix movie.
Wow. Yeah, I do want to watch that, but I, like you, want to watch the other movies first. So I am sure that this is going to be gone from HBO by the time I finally get to watch it. And I'll have to wait for it to come out again on HBO.
Maybe. Yeah.
So
We actually signed up for HBO Max so that we could watch, because I owned the first Matrix. Well, I own all of them, but I'm not into watching DVD copies anymore. And I only have the first Matrix in 4K. I don't own the second and third ones in 4K.
Yep.
So we got HBO Max so that we could watch those, and so that Eden could watch Pretty Little Liars. And I guess there's some Harry Potter thing that's coming out like in a few days. So
in a few days,
they want to watch that. So yeah, HBO, you can watch all 4 of them right now if you want. Make it one long day, one kind of awesome long day.
that would hurt my brain.
I recommend
think.
it.
All right.
Do you want to get into the rest of what's going on in your entertainment center? I didn't even check to see if you have new things down here.
No, I do. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and run through that, because it's been the holidays and I have stuff going on in my life. So yeah, there's some stuff. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be moving in a little bit, and so we've been going through things, trying to get rid of stuff, and I'm finding old stuff. Yesterday, I found the manual for my ATI cable card tuner.
Why do you have the manual?
I think the bigger question is, why was it in the linen closet in my bathroom? I think that now, in fairness, I have a fair amount of random things stashed in there because I don't really use the bathroom in my office as like a place to bathe. It's a bathroom off my office. So I don't need linens in there. So it's storage for me.
Right.
But yeah, I thought that was an interesting find. Now the real thing is, as I start getting rid of the carcasses of computers in the basement, am I going to find the actual card down there somewhere? I probably will. And it will see its end finally in the big dumpster that's in my driveway.
See, I didn't get rid of some of those pieces that felt like history. I moved them.
Yeah.
Don't tell Jen. I moved them.
Right. I'm trying not to do that.
Right.
I'm trying not to do that. I found some first generation Insteon controller devices that they stopped making like 10 years ago.
Oh man.
And took a picture of them and sent them to one of my contacts at Smart Labs, and he was like, wow, that's nostalgia. So yeah, cool. All right. So I've been watching some stuff too. Disney Insider, I mentioned this last time. They are back with new episodes. So I've been watching a few of those. All caught up on New Amsterdam, couple left for that season. Not quite sure where they're going to go with that exactly. So it's been good. I've enjoyed it. Discovery season 4, I mentioned that I'm disappointed in this. I think what I'm disappointed in is it's lacking something. It's lacking I don't care. The stories are good, but I just don't care. And I think part of it is because there are characters that act so earnestly. They are so feeling it. And it just seems overdone. It seems it's just not realistic to me for some reason, to the extent that, flying around the universe in a ship that is somehow propelled by spores is realistic, but it just doesn't seem as good as it has been. This show was very, very good in its first 2 seasons, and last year was intriguing. This year, I'm just not feeling it, but I'll see it through, and I'll probably watch it because it's Star Trek, and it has potential. We've been watching Penny Dreadful. I mentioned that. We have a couple more episodes under the belt in season 2 of that. There is, if you haven't found it yet, a very short, I think 3-minute long Ted Lasso commercial. Animated Christmas short that you can watch on Apple TV Plus. If you're into that, it's a couple more minutes of the Ted Lasso characters as animated characters, but voiced by the real actors. And it's entertaining. It's nothing special. Watched a bunch of movies. We watched the movie, which I've already seen before, The Art of Racing in the Rain. I didn't read that book. I've heard it was very good. We liked the movie. I'm a dog person, so that helps. And also watched a bunch of Christmas movies. Watched Scrooged, watched Miracle on 34th Street, the new one, not the old one. Watched Christmas with the Cranks, one of my favorites, actually. And I've never done this before at Christmas, but we watched Die Hard and Die Hard 2 because apparently the consensus is they're Christmas movies.
Right.
And I'm not going to fight that. So finally, there has been a lot of talk on the internet about this documentary that a YouTube video guy did about Disney's lines and how Disney lines work and how they've changed over the years. And there's one out now called Disney's Fastpass, and it's in a series called Defunct Land. So you look for Defunct Land in YouTube if you're interested in this. It's an hour and a half long, like individual produced show about lines at Disney, the math and science and mechanics behind them, how they've evolved, and why what they're doing, though outrageously controversial, is probably actually the best way of managing lines right now. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So if you're into Disney,
that you should watch while you're in line at Disney World.
If you're into Disney stuff, and probably more importantly, if you're in any way interested in queuing theory, this is really cool.
Interesting. That's cool.
All right. That's it for me. That's a lot. But Josh, how about you?
Not a ton, a little bit of Forza Horizon 5, a little bit of NHL 22. Of course, I already mentioned that we watched all of the Matrix movies within the last week. I don't regret that at all. It was fun. And we did watch, our Christmas Eve tradition is to watch the original Grinch Who Stole Christmas, the one that's only like 28 minutes long or whatever. And,
yeah.
I love that. That was my Christmas tradition growing up.
Absolutely.
So I love that. That was great. That's pretty much it outside of some football and things like that, and gearing up for some big college football this coming weekend. We were hoping to maybe go do the new Spider-Man movie this week. I think Jen's probably going to end up seeing it with my daughter. I don't know that I'm going to. It gets tricky when 3 of us are interested in seeing a movie, but not the 8-year-old, So I don't know. Maybe I'll just pass. But Jen definitely wants to see it, and maybe we'll have to have her back on the show to talk about the new Spider-Man movie. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me too.
Unless you find some obscure time, that's not likely to be an empty theater. That has been raking in the dough. It hit 1 billion.
Right. Yeah.
Already.
It was crazy how packed theaters were the weekend that thing came out. Wow. Yeah. We weren't there. I've really enjoyed this season for movies. I mean, I didn't expect there to only be 2 other people there, but then again, it was a Wednesday at 2:00 in the afternoon. But it's the week between Christmas and New Year's, so I thought there might be more people in the theater than a total of 4. But I wasn't complaining.
That's probably a very good thing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week. So, and to put out a dad joke, it's the last show of the year. We'll see you all next year. So next week is CES. we're covering CES. We're doing it remotely, together remotely, not in Vegas. We're not going near that. Not this year. Even though
No.
Richard, I don't know if you've looked at their latest announcements. They are really ramping up what they're requiring people to do. They're giving people COVID tests. They're requiring masks. They already required vaccinations. I still don't know that enough of that would be that all of that would be enough for me. So yeah, neither of us are going to be in Vegas. We're still covering CES next week. What does that mean for a show? It means I don't know what day we're recording this show next week, but
Right.
there will be an Entertainment 2.0 next week, wrapping up all of the, entertainment news media, entertainment media stuff, news from CES next week. And Richard and I love recording these shows in person, so that'll be really fun.
Yep.
But probably we tend to do those a little bit later in the week so that we've got everything, so that we can talk about all of it at once, so we don't have to do it twice. So probably later in the week. I wouldn't expect it to be live. We don't normally do those live, but maybe.
We might be able to do this one live.
That's true. We're not in crappy hotel Wi-Fi, so
Yeah, we may be able to do this live because we're gonna. Yeah, let's look into that.
Okay.
If you have the equipment you need to pull this off, I'll have my good recorder. I think we can make this work.
Cool. All right. Well, then maybe we will do it live. All right. Well, that's it. So if you want to get a hold of us, we're on Twitter. Richard is at Richard Gunther. I'm at Josh Pollard. The website is at DigiMediaZone. All the rest of our contact information, including the email address, if you want to send us some feedback, is all over in our show notes at thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm not going to put our picks of the year in the show notes because I want people to listen to them to get our picks. If you missed them, maybe I'll update them a few days later. But otherwise, you might just need to rewind. And, if you're like, ooh, I really like that book that Richard was talking about. Well, just rewind it 30 seconds and you'll get the name of it. But that's going to do it for this show for 2021. It's been a pretty decent year despite the pandemic. And looking forward to 2022. That's going to do it for episode 574. He's Richard Gunther, and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye.